All right, guys, welcome back. And let's just take a quick look at the drawing as we've left off here. We completed the general rafter, which can be found here along the top. We completed the ridge beam here at the top, and we completed a general stud to hold up the ridge. We're pretending like we're working on the wall, which is below us, and this is the top plate and double top plate of the wall. These are the end studs going in a different direction away from us. So the next thing we need to do to complete this particular project is we're going to need to draw the joists that would sit on top of the ceiling. And in order to do that, the first thing we need to do for the joists would be to add a flat joist across the top. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need to have a joist that comes up 3/16 from this bottom edge here. And then we're going to have another 3/16 over here. But I don't actually want to draw. You're not going to see it behind the front rafter. So we've got to be really careful to make sure we draw only behind the rafter there. And then I actually usually will bring it back about an inch past the rafter. So I'm going to bring this an eighth over. Okay. And then I'm going to use my ruler. And I am going to draw that down because there's going to be a cut in the board right there, which I will show you later in 3D exactly what that is. But so that's a board that's going to be there, but we have an issue where this is intersecting with that board there. And typically speaking, the ceiling joist is going to be either cut out around this rafter or it's going to come all the way in. And the way that I cut them out here on the edge, it's typically going to come all the way over. So this this beam, can sit on top of it, which just makes that end wall a little bit stronger. It's my preferred way of building. There's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way here, although it could be argued that one way is better or not better. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. With modern building standards, green building standards, sometimes more wood is not as good. Sometimes less seams for air penetrations is better. So now that we have that joist, we need to make sure that we're getting in. We're going to have a bunch of these boards inside the roof area, the ceiling joists that are standing up on end, which we talked about in class. So in order to do that, again, I could measure all that stuff out, but I'm going to do a quick sheet just to speed this up since I do have the kit with this particular piece in it that is perfectly sized. I can just trace it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of dashes in here, roughly every eighth inch, drawing a line and then having an eighth inch gap. It's just an estimate, but as close as I can get to it. And then what I want to do is come down. I'm going to put this on end. I'm going to do the same thing here. And then I'm going to do the same thing kind of coming up the wall because that's where that piece is actually going to go to. And what these dashes mean is that is where, that means there's wood back there in the drawing that you can't actually see in the drawing. And so it's kind of representing that there is something back there that's important, but it doesn't really show up. You wouldn't be able to see it through this part. So it's kind of what we're representing with that. Oops, sorry. The microphone's a little low. I keep tapping into it. Let's just lift it up a little bit. So that's going to represent those two pieces there. We have this board actually, which is also going all the way across, and you don't see the rest of it. So we need to make the dotted lines for it. And if I do this with my ruler, I can really see the dotted line spacing really well, which is nice. Every 1/8 inch. Okay. So that shows me that I got a board, that this board continues on behind this piece to here, and this board is standing up even further back behind all of these pieces back there. I do want to add a couple more end studs here, which will erase a couple of really small spots. 16 inches on center is typically what we go for, and we already figured out that that was 2 inches. So if I hook on to the right side of this piece, then, and I go to 0, that's the right side. So I need to come back to get my other tick mark here. And so these dots up here I'm just using to help get my line nice and straight. This will be seen prominently through. So this here is not visible through this stud. Okay. And then I need to have at least one more of these going in the other direction. So I come over. Now that I'm hooked on the right side, I need my other line to be to the left. I'm going to come up here and do the same thing. So this line should go all the way through here. This line will go through here. All right, so that is an end wall with a couple of different studs that would hold up plywood. We should have some studs coming in down here. We need to have, in addition to this, our title box filled in the exact same way our other title box was filled in. If you're not sure how to do that, I'm not going to repeat that in this video. You can go back and watch the last video on how to do that. The other thing that you're going to need is, or you should be able to copy your other drawing too, because if you've already completed these in order, then your other drawing will have the title box completed correctly. The only difference is for this particular drawing, now instead of 1 to 3, you're going to say this is page 2, so it's going to be 1 over 2. Sorry, it's going to be page 2 over 3 because it's 2 of 3 pages. The scale is the same. The date is whenever you do it. The project information, this is no longer the wall elevation. This is the roofing elevation, and or you can call it the roofing plan. The client's the same. The draftsman's the same. So that's, there you go. I do want to add a little bit more wall information here, just because I like to do that. I'm not going to have exact placement of everything, but since our last wall was pretty simple, it was every 2 inches, I'm just going to put a 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 mark on here. I come down here and I'm going to do the same thing, so I have 2 dots to work off of. 2, 4, okay. And then these lines here that I draw, these are not going to be complete lines. I'm just going to randomly, I'm going to leave them open because this is a section drawing that goes to nowhere. So I'll explain this a little bit more detail in just a second. But this just kind of shows that there is something below here although it's not defined or definitive as to what it is, as these studs are open here. So I did get a little bit sloppy right here. I don't want anything going out of place or crooked, so I'm going to come back and clean that up. Okay, we'll clean that up just a little bit. And then I do have some headers on my other drawing, which I do need to represent if this is showing that area of the drawing. And unfortunately, I can't leave it out now. So I'm going to have to come in here and put in my 1-inch line. My 1-inch line. So none of this stuff's going to come below. Right? Just make sure that line is clean. And then we do have a couple other small things in here that should be in it. I'm actually using my ruler across both headers to make sure that they line up nice and neat. I'm going to try and erase anything that's too low. I don't want to see the bottom of the headers, but I do need to see, what I would like to see is the detail for the cripples, because that's on the other drawing and the drawings need to match to be a good representation of what should be there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just get rid of these drawings. I'm going to bring all of these lines up to where it's higher than the end of that other stud, so I don't have to show any more detail because the drawing just doesn't go that far. The one thing I am missing here that should be on here is this stud right here. Okay, so there we go. We have general roof plan. This will get you your rafters cut out the right size. I'm going to erase this information that I used to just kind of explain things earlier to you. That wouldn't normally be on a set of plans. I just was using it for educational purposes. All of this information here, I'm going to erase it just so that these plans look a little bit neater. And any of this information should actually be in a key if you want to put it in a key or into the title box. Okay, let me go ahead and just finish up this title box real quick. We'll get it started with what's different, and then you guys will be on your way. So again, this is going to have your, this page, nope, I just messed that up. This is page 2. Of 3. Okay. In fact, you could call this page 3 of 3 because you have 2 different framing plans. But I'm going to call it 2 of 3 for now. There's an extra one. And then we're going to actually, we could make a floor plan later, which we should probably do at a later time. The next box right here is scale. So we're going to draw that with a 3/8, 3/8. And I know I'm going kind of fast, trying not to take up too much video. You guys can always play and pause the video. Some of this is repetitive anyway. See how dark that line is actually? That was a really bad idea. I should be a very very light line that should barely be visible. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that line right now before I put my lettering in there. And then that erased line is actually just about right so that I can put my lettering in there without having any issues. So this is scale. And again, the scale here is 1 inch equals 1/8. Okay, the next thing we have is the date. On this drawing, I'm going to draw it a little bit differently than our last one, just to see what I like better. I kind of like the date facing this way. Okay, so for the date, we're going to have the same 9/25/20. You may have a different date depending on when you make yours. And that's absolutely fine. Okay, and then over here, we're going to need some really light lines just to help keep all of our letters really straight, okay, and really neat. So again, on the side here, the differences for our project information, I'll just put it in here for you guys. Let's just do it. The project information should say that this is a roof plan. And the next one is the, or it should be the roof like framing plan. That's fine. And then the next one is the client information. So in this case, I'm obviously the draftsman and the client, but you guys should be saying that the client is Mr. Bell, TOHS, A2, and then you can put your name, draftsman. Which will be whatever your contact information is. I'm just going to put a fake name here to demonstrate this. Bob Smith, and then whatever your period is, you may be period 1, period 2, period 3. I'm just going to put period 3 as an example. Okay, that's the general roof framing plan. Let me just clean this up a little bit more. Get rid of this center line up there. I do like the idea of having an actual center line. It's good information, so I'm going to, you don't want it to touch the actual roof itself, but we'll put an actual nice clean center line there. Make sure everything is nice, neat, and tidy, and you should be good to go.